Welcome to the deep dive. Get ready to have your perception of robots, well, completely recalibrated. Because today we are journeying way back in time. We're exploring the incredible history of early robots and what they called automatons back then.
Right. And for this exploration, it's quite fascinating. We've gathered a real mix of sources.
Okay.
We'll be looking at an article from history.com, hitting some key early examples.
Yeah.
Then there's a beautifully detailed piece from Quirrell and Pad, really celebrating the artistry.
Oh, the mechanical side.
Exactly. The comprehensive Wikipedia entry on automatons, of course.
Yeah.
We've also got excerpts from Adelheid Voskuhl's book, Androids in the Enlightenment, which is quite thought-provoking.
Interesting.
And a Reddit thread where modern folks are actually sharing this history to, well, the future of robotics.
Okay, quite a spread. So our mission for this deep dive, it's really about digging into that history, the long and frankly surprising story of self-operating machines.
Yeah, uncovering not just what they were, but the sheer ingenuity behind them.
Right, spanning from ancient civilizations way back right up to the dawn of modern robotics.
And the big questions we're asking are, why did people build these? What inspired them? And how on earth did they pull it off with the tech they had?
Exactly. Okay, let's unpack this, starting right at the beginning. The term automaton itself, it's got intriguing roots, doesn't it?
It really does. Automaton, it comes from the Greek automatos, basically means acting of one's own will. And even Homer, centuries ago, used this word for things like automatic doors or self-moving tripods. So this idea, this core concept of independent movement, it's really ancient.
It is, and almost immediately it seems like these ideas just leaped into mythology. We hear these amazing Greek myths, gods like Hephaestus crafting automatons for his workshop.
Right, the golden handmaidens, things like that.
And the legendary bronze giant Talos. Even King Alcinous in the Odyssey had those golden and silver watchdogs, seemingly autonomous. It really makes you wonder, what does this tell us about, the early human imagination?
Well, what's fascinating is how these myths often reflected early hopes, maybe anxieties too. This deep desire to sort of give life or agency to inanimate objects.
Yeah.
Aristotle even mentions Daedalus, the mythical inventor using quicksilver to make wooden statues seem alive. It really blurs that line between folklore and maybe some very early tinkering with mechanics.
And it wasn't just stories, was it? We start seeing actual physical automata coming out of the Hellenistic world.
Absolutely.
And these weren't just like little toys. They had different purposes, practical, religious, even scientific.
Precisely. Think about Ctesibius. He created water-powered automata, including something many see as the earliest cuckoo clock.
Wow.
You've got Hero of Alexandria, a real powerhouse inventor. His designs, a fully mechanical stage play.
How did that even work?
Well, imagine a clever system of ropes, cogwheels, simple machines, levers, also a programmable cart, maybe the first vending machine, wind-powered organs, even war machines.
Incredible.
And Philo of Byzantium was another key figure back then.
And then there's the Antikythera mechanism. Around 200 to 80 BCE. That thing is just mind-blowing.
It really is.
To think of it as the earliest known analog computer, maybe from Rhodes, which was apparently known for automata, it makes you completely rethink ancient tech capability.
Definitely. It wasn't just abstract thought. They were building incredibly complex devices.
Yeah.
And this inventiveness wasn't just in the Mediterranean. Ancient China has equally amazing accounts.
Right, like the Lizi text from around 400 BCE.
Exactly. It describes Yan Shi presenting King Mu of Zhou with this humanoid automaton, life-sized and so lifelike the king was just stunned.
Okay, but here's where it gets really wild. This wasn't just a statue.
No.
The text talks about its insides: liver, gallbladder, heart, lungs, and says removing parts actually affected how it worked.
It apparently is saying when you touched its chin, struck poses if you touched its hand.
And winked at the ladies in waiting. What does that level of detail even suggest? About their understanding of anatomy, or maybe just the intent behind making such a convincing illusion?
Well, that detail certainly points to a sophisticated grasp of how interconnected parts could create lifelike actions.
Right.
Maybe based on observation, not deep science as we know it, but still.
Still impressive.
Yeah. And we also hear about Archytas' flying wooden doves and Chinese stories about flying automata by Mozi and Luban, these wooden birds, Ma Yuan.
So all these early examples, real or legendary, they really laid the groundwork.
A powerful foundation for centuries of innovation, absolutely.
So moving into the medieval period, did this tradition keep going? Did they keep making these things?
Oh, absolutely. The Greek manufacturing traditions definitely carried on into the Middle Ages. We have Liutprand of Cremona's description, really vivid of automata, in Emperor Theophilus's palace in 949, showcasing their use as symbols of power, wonder.
Still that element of spectacle.
Very much so. And interestingly, the first wind-powered automata show, up around then too, 8th century Baghdad, a new power source.
Baghdad seems like a real hub then. We hear about Jabir ibn Hayyan, or Gaber, with these almost alchemical recipes for artificial snakes, scorpions, even humans.
A bit strange, yeah.
And then the caliphs Al-Mamun and Al-Muqtir commissioning those incredible silver and golden trees with singing metal birds in their palaces. These weren't just fancy decorations, surely.
No, definitely potent symbols,
Yeah.
wealth, tech prowess, maybe even dominion over nature.
Right.
The Banu Musa brothers also pushed things forward in the 9th century. They invented a programmable automatic flute player.
Programmable back then.
Using pegs on a rotating cylinder, essentially. But maybe the most pivotal figure from this era was Al-Jazari, around 1206.
Al-Jazari. His stuff was amazing. That water-powered orchestra on a boat?
Right. A harpist, flautist, 2 drummers, all moving and playing because of that rotating drum with programmable pegs, often called an early programmable device.
It's incredible. And it seems he wasn't just about entertainment. Does his work mentioning automated slaves hint at early motivations for automation, like wanting to offload labor?
That's a key point. Al-Jazari was explicitly trying to make human-like machines for practical uses, not just fun. That automated slave motif definitely reflects the society he lived in. And yeah, probably a desire for labor-saving solutions, however they pictured them.
Interesting.
We also see examples elsewhere. China, Su San's amazing water clock tower in 1066 with little figures chiming the hours.
Right.
In 11th century India, the Samarangana Sutradhara describes mechanical bees, birds, dolls doing various things. It shows how widespread this fascination was.
It really paints a global picture.
Yeah.
And even in Europe, Villa de Honnecourt's sketchbook, 1230s, he draws an early escapement mechanism.
Crucial for clocks later on.
Exactly, that controlled release of power. And he sketched a bird automaton with jointed wings. Later, Robert II, Count of Artois, had that pleasure garden at Hesdin.
Filled with monkey marionettes, mechanized birds, fountains.
Yeah, showcasing a more playful side.
So that brings us to the Renaissance and the early modern period. A real resurgence of interest, wasn't it?
Absolutely. Translating Hero's old texts really kicked things off again. You start seeing hydraulic and pneumatic automata popping up in garden grottos, creating these amazing, surprising spectacles.
And Giovanni Fontana in the 15th century. Some truly imaginative stuff. A puppet camelid driven by a primate. An automaton of Mary Magdalene. Rocket-propelled animal automata.
It's like they were constantly pushing the boundaries of what seemed possible mechanically.
Definitely.
And we can't forget clocks. Early clocks weren't just for time. They were showcases for automata, like the big astronomical clocks in Strasbourg or Prague with all their moving figures.
Incredible craftsmanship.
And clockwork automata themselves became prized possessions. Goldsmiths made them. People put them in cabinets of curiosities in 16th century Central Europe.
Yeah.
Real status symbols, right?
Absolutely. Representing artistry and technical skill. And then you had these incredibly lavish events using them. Duke Philip's Feast of the Pheasant in 1454.
Or that banquet for Camilla of Aragon in 1475.
Both featuring elaborate automated figures as entertainment.
Exactly. And then, Leonardo da Vinci.
Ah, yes.
His sketches for a mechanical knight around 1495, legendary, powered by a crank, cables, pulleys, designed to sit, stand, move its arms.
And the amazing thing is, a functional replica was built in 2002 by a NASA roboticist. And it worked.
Which strongly suggests Da Vinci wasn't just sketching, he was genuinely pioneering what we now call robotics.
It really shows his visionary thinking. And the mechanical monk from the 16th century, commissioned by King Philip II, built by Juan Turiano.
Still working today at the Smithsonian.
Incredible, isn't it? Spring-powered, walks, seems to pray, kisses a rosary, a tangible link to that era.
And while Europe had these clockwork figures, Japan had its own amazing tradition. The karakuri puppets.
Right, intricate designs really taking off in the 17th century, especially during the Edo period. Parallel ingenuity.
And around this time, you get René Descartes with his big philosophical idea.
Viewing animal bodies as complex machines. Bones as levers, muscles as pistons, organs like cams. That really shifted how people thought about mechanics and life itself.
And France, in the 17th century, became a real hotbed for clever mechanical toys, almost like prototypes for the Industrial Revolution.
Mm-hmm. Camus making a mini coach for Louis XIV, General de Gene building a peacock that walked and ate.
Even Athanasius Kircher making automata for Jesuit shows, including a statue that could supposedly speak and listen.
Which leads us neatly to Jacques de Vaucanson in the 1730s, a true giant in the field.
His flute player was amazing, playing 12 songs, the tambourine player, and especially that digesting duck.
The duck gave the illusion of eating grain and, well, excreting. It caused a huge sensation. Voltaire compared him to Prometheus.
High praise indeed.
But beyond the spectacle, Vaucanson was also pioneering practical things, like the automatic loom, the all-metal lathe, showing how this tinkering had real-world industrial applications. He was supposedly inspired by anatomy lessons, too.
That connection between understanding life and creating artificial versions.
Exactly.
And the marvels just kept coming in the 18th century. James Cox and John Joseph Merlin's Silver Swan.
Still working, breathtakingly beautiful. Clockwork swan preening, gliding on a simulated brook with a music box. Mark Twain saw it later and was just captivated. Described its movements as graceful, its eyes intelligent.
Wow. And Pierre-Jacques Droz and his son, Henri Louis. Their humanoid automata were incredibly lifelike.
The writer could be programmed for 40 characters. The draftsman drew 4 different pictures. The musician played 5 songs on a mini organ.
And the details. Eyes following the actions, the musician looked like it was breathing, even bowed.
Yeah, they were shown in royal courts all over Europe. And again, remarkably, they still work today in a Swiss museum.
Just incredible preservation. We also have Henri Maillardet's automaton that drew pictures and wrote poems.
Now at the Franklin Institute.
Hubert Martinet's musical elephant from 1774.
Still at Waddesdon Manor.
The famous Tippoo's tiger from the late 18th century.
A classic.
And James Cox's peacock clock for Catherine the Great, 1781.
Still a treasure at the Hermitage. And it's interesting, even Frederick the Great of Prussia was apparently obsessed with automata, supposedly seeing his armies as clockwork mechanisms.
A particular mindset.
Definitely. Which brings us toward what's often called the golden age of automata. Mid-19th century, say 1860 to 1910.
And the Industrial Revolution was key here, right? Standardized parts making things easier, cheaper to produce.
Absolutely monumental. Suddenly you had companies specializing in these things. Thousands of mechanical singing birds, other automata being exported globally.
Must have been an amazing time for them to reach a much wider audience.
It really was. A boom time for production and accessibility. But then World War I, economic hardship, priorities shifted.
And the mass production declined.
Yeah, it led to a decline. The art didn't vanish, but you saw a shift, either towards very high-end artistic pieces or cheaper, mass-market toys, especially as electricity and new manufacturing came in.
But now there's a kind of modern renaissance because of the internet.
Seems so. People are rediscovering them online. We should also quickly mention Jean-Jules Robert Houdin, the famous 19th century magician.
He used automata in his magic shows.
Cleverly incorporated them, yes. And Innocenzo Manzetti's flute-playing automaton from the 1840s, and just to name drop some key French makers from that golden age, Bontemps, Lambert, Fallebois, Renou, Roulet and Decamps, Theroux, Vichy.
Real masters of the craft.
Absolutely. And let's not forget automaton clocks, that long history from ancient times right through the Victorian era. Evolving themes, the classic cuckoo clock. Japan's still a big producer today.
Okay, so underneath all this incredible artistry, this ingenuity, there had to be some core mechanical principles, right? It's amazing how much complexity they got from simple parts.
Absolutely. And it really boils down to just 5 basic mechanical principles, fundamentally.
Okay, what are they?
You've got wheels for rotary or linear motion, pulleys to transfer rotation over distance, gears, crucial for changing force and speed precisely, cams, which create non-constant repeating motion.
Like making something bob up and down.
Exactly. And finally, linkages, which translate rotational motion into different kinds of directional movements.
Right, those are the building blocks. You can just picture generations of inventors fiddling with these, combining them in clever ways.
Precisely. Even something incredibly complex like Jacques Droz is the writer. Ultimately, it's just a vast, intricate system of those basic parts. A network of carefully shaped cams, precisely connected linkages, creating those delicate handwriting movements.
Amazing.
The Jacques Droz whistling machine, which is a more recent homage, actually shows its mechanism openly. You can see the power flow from the key to the mainspring. the simple on-off linkage.
You can trace it.
Yeah, see how cams and pinions control the bird's rotation, wing flaps, beak opening, even the pitch of the whistle? It's all visible.
So moving beyond just being amazing gadgets, what was the deeper cultural significance of these things throughout history?
Well, in their earliest forms, many were, as we said, religious objects or displays of power and wealth, often viewed with a bit of suspicion by ordinary people, maybe linked to magic or miracles. The Renaissance brought that shift, more intellectual curiosity, sparked by rediscovering those ancient Greek texts.
And Adelheid Voskuil, in her book, has that interesting take on the later ones, the Enlightenment automata, like the piano-playing women.
Right. She argues they weren't just about anxiety over humans becoming machines,
No.
but more a reflection of the sentimental culture of the time, valuing graceful, expressive movement, like a musician's.
So they reflected cultural values, not just technological prowess.
Exactly. They were mirrors to their eras. And their influence didn't stop there. Look at art, pop culture. Hoffman's The Sandman, films like Metropolis, Hugo Cabret.
Even modern video games like Genshin Impact or Helldivers 2, the Siberia series.
Yeah, and modern artists like Elizabeth King are still exploring that intersection of the human and mechanical with contemporary automata.
It's fascinating how that historical passion still echoes. We even looked at that Reddit thread, people today asking how to start making their own automatons.
Right. And the advice was pretty practical. Start with clock kits, maybe take apart music boxes or wind-up toys to see how they work.
Get your hands dirty.
Exactly. The book Making Things Move by Dustin Roberts came up a lot. There was a bit of debate, theory first, like gear ratios, or just jump in and tinker.
What was the consensus?
Seemed to lean towards choosing a manageable medium wood was popular for beginners, maybe using kits to start. Then for next steps, things like figures in the fourth dimension or using Arduino and servo motors came up.
Getting more advanced.
Yeah. And someone mentioned the House on the Rock in Wisconsin as inspiration, a quirky place full of mechanical wonders.
Oh, right. Okay, and finally, it's crucial to draw that line, connect these historical marvels to modern robotics and automation.
Absolutely crucial. These early self-operating machines were, without question, the ancestors of modern robots and automation. They were the test beds for ideas, they sparked imagination, inspired wonder. That drive still pushes innovation today.
Many basic machinery design principles were first tried out in automata.
Exactly. And as that University of Cincinnati article highlights, the future of robotics needs people with advanced skills, design, engineering, maintenance, Industry 4.0, connecting robotics with data, AI. It's transforming everything.
We see it already, AGVs in Amazon warehouses.
Drones, UAVs for logistics. Robot density is a big metric now. South Korea leads, the US is up there. But the field is constantly advancing. AI, deep learning, making robots smarter, more flexible.
So there's a growing need for engineers who can blend those old mechanical principles with the new tech.
Precisely. Problem solvers who can integrate it all, and job opportunities in robotics are definitely growing.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, it's really quite something, tracing this line from ancient myths of moving statues right up to the robots of today.
It really is. The history of automatons shows this persistent human fascination with creating artificial life, artificial movement. It's a blend of art, engineering, sheer curiosity.
And those early efforts, driven by myth, wonder, practical needs, they absolutely laid the groundwork for the advanced robotics shaping our world now.
No question about it.
And on that thought, here's something for you to ponder. How does that ancient, almost primal fascination with bringing inanimate objects to life still fuel the relentless innovation we see in robotics and AI today? And what astonishing new creations might emerge from this enduring human desire in the years and decades to come? Thanks for joining us on The Deep Dive.